It was the final day of school, and the air buzzed with excitement and relief. Sarah, a senior, had just finished her last class and was ready to kick off her summer vacation. But before she could head home, she remembered she had left her gym clothes in her locker. The locker room was empty as Sarah entered, the echoes of laughter and chatter from earlier in the day now replaced by an eerie silence. She shivered, feeling a chill crawl down her spine. Ignoring the unease gnawing at her, she made her way to her locker, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. As she reached for the lock, her hand hesitated. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She brushed it off as paranoia and began to twist the combination lock, but her fingers trembled, causing her to fumble with the dial. Suddenly, she heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible at first, but growing louder with each passing second. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she strained to make out the words. It sounded like her name. Her breath caught in her throat as she glanced around the locker room, searching for the source of the voice. But the room was empty, the shadows dancing ominously against the walls. Then, just as she was about to give up, she saw a figure lurking in the corner, its form shrouded in darkness. Terror gripped Sarah as she stared at the shapeless mass, her mind racing with fear. Without a second thought, she snatched her gym clothes from the locker and bolted out of the room, her heart pounding in her ears. But even as she fled down the empty hallway, she could feel the presence of something sinister following close behind, its icy breath hot on her neck. To this day, Sarah refuses to set foot in that locker room alone, haunted by the memory of that last day of school. Jake and his friends had been counting down the days until graduation, eager to leave the confines of high school behind and embrace the freedom of summer vacation. But as they wandered the empty halls on the final day of school, their excitement turned to curiosity when they stumbled upon an old yearbook hidden in the depths of the library. The pages were yellowed with age, the faces of students from decades past staring back at them with frozen smiles. Jake and his friends laughed at the outdated hairstyles and cheesy grins, flipping through the pages with abandon. But as they reached the last page, their laughter died in their throats. Staring back at them were the faces of students they had never seen before, their expressions twisted in agony. Confused and unnerved, Jake and his friends shrugged it off, chalking it up to a prank or a glitch in the printing process. But that night, as they gathered for their graduation ceremony, they couldn't shake the feeling of unease that hung in the air like a thick fog. As the principal began to speak, a chill swept through the auditorium, and the lights flickered ominously. Jake and his friends exchanged nervous glances, their unease growing with each passing second. Then, without warning, the ghostly figures from the yearbook appeared before them, their eyes burning with fury. Terrified screams filled the air as Jake and his friends realized they were trapped in a nightmare with nowhere to run. They huddled together, praying for morning to come and release them from this living hell. And when the sun finally rose, they fled the school grounds, vowing never to return to that cursed place again. Emily couldn't contain her excitement as she sat in her final class, counting down the minutes until the bell would ring and she would be free from the confines of high school forever. But as she glanced at her teacher, Mrs. Thompson, she noticed something strange about her demeanor. Her eyes seemed distant, almost glazed over, and her voice had an otherworldly quality to it. Emily brushed it off as exhaustion, assuming her teacher was just as eager for summer vacation as the rest of them. But as the minutes ticked by, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Mrs. Thompson's movements grew more erratic, her gaze fixed on something unseen. Then, just as the bell was about to ring, Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened in horror, and she let out a blood-curdling scream. Without warning, she vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but a trail of shimmering light. Panic erupted in the classroom as Emily and her classmates realized they were alone. With trembling hands, Emily reached for her phone, desperate to call for help. But as she dialed 911, she realized there was no signal. Trapped in a school that seemed to exist outside of time and space, Emily and her classmates huddled together, praying for rescue. But as the hours stretched into days, they began to lose hope, haunted by the memory of their vanished teacher and the horrors that lurked within those empty halls.